fuck are you?
So since Morbius has become one of the lowest rated comic book movies in recent memory, people have been collectively bashing it because it's easy to make fun of it. But this also got people talking about other low rated comic book movies. And there's this Twitter page that put out this GIF that has been making the rounds, showing the top 10 lowest rated Marvel movies, based on Rotten Tomato scores. Although it is missing a few of them, like the first Captain America movie from the 90s, as well as the Fantastic Four movie from the same era. They should be in one of these 10 spots as well, but it's whatever. But I figured, hell, let's take a look at the lowest rated Marvel movies and see if it's actually worthy of the low ratings that they received. And why would we do that? Simply because
I'm fucking bored, man.
Although we are going to tweak some things a bit, because this comment made a pretty good point. And really, comic book movies from the 80s and 90s aren't the best, and I think they're really easy to make fun of. I mean, realistically, there's only like a handful of them from those eras that are actually good. So we're going to remove Howard the Duck and the first Punisher movie, and replace them with movies that came out in the 2000s. So I did some Google searching, and I found a list, and I'm pretty sure this is the same list that was used to help create this gift on that Twitter page, because it was posted recently, and it has the same Marvel movies in the same order. So after scrolling through and looking at the ratings, we got the 2 Punisher movies to add to the list instead. So the contenders are Fantastic Four 2015, Elektra, Morbius, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, X-Men Dark Phoenix, Blade Trinity, Ghost Rider, Fantastic Four 2005, Punisher 2004, and Punisher Warzone. And really I'm just gonna give you my opinion on whether or not it deserves its rating, and if it's actually that bad. And you know what, I figured since we're on the topic, let's do the same thing, but with the MCU movies. I mean, hell, since we're talking about Marvel movies, might as well look at the lowest rated MCU movies as well. So we'll talk about those later. And maybe in the future I'll do the same thing with DC. So enough setup, let's go ahead and get into it. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be pulling from my memory for most of these, because it's been a few years since I've actually watched them all. So my memory might make you think that it's better than it was, or worse than it actually was. And plus, y'all know nostalgia is gonna play a little bit of a factor. But anyway, let's get into it.
When I'm on cocaine, I can shake the baby to sleep faster than I can shake a gin and tonic.
So we're going to start with the highest rated, working our way down to the lowest rated, which means we got the 2 Punisher movies, both sitting at a 29%. Now I've actually already did a video about Punisher Warzone, so you can check that out if you want to see my full thoughts. So I'll say this, in regards to Punisher Warzone, I actually really like it. I like the ultra violence, I love the look and aesthetic of the movie, and I just love how goofy and cartoonish like all the characters are. Over the top, weird villains, and everyone has such an exaggerated accent. I find the movie just very entertaining, and definitely not deserving of a 29%. And as for the 2004 Punisher movie, I actually don't think the movie is that bad at all. It's just really slow and kind of boring at times. But when the action finally happens, it's pretty good. Again, don't think it's deserving of a 29%. I don't think neither one of these 2 movies deserves to be on a list of like the top 10 worst comic book movies, or lowest rated comic book movies, especially since they're both pretty entertaining. Next up is 2005's Fantastic Four, sitting pretty with a 28%. Now, I know a lot of people like this movie. I think that's to do with nostalgia. But if I'm being honest, I never really cared for it even back when I was a kid. Then also while watching it as an adult, I don't think it's that entertaining. I just found it mostly boring, and even the cheesy and goofy moments aren't as fun or silly as other comic book movies from that era. So 28%, sure, why not? I don't care. Next is Ghost Rider, with a 26%. And if I'm being honest, I think this movie is a blast just because Nicolas Cage is just outrageous. His performance alone just elevates the entire film, and I really can't see anyone else playing this character now. Is it hammy? Yes. Is it cheesy? Yes. Is it goofy? Hell yeah. But it makes for a very entertaining movie. And a movie that has Nicolas Cage being over the top and funny should never be this low rated. Next is Blade Trinity, with a 25%. Now I covered all 3 of the Blade movies a while ago, so you can go check that out if you want my full thoughts. But I think Blade Trinity's biggest crime is just being so goddamn boring. It didn't really take the vampire lore anywhere interesting. The action is scaled down and not as fun. And the whole aesthetic just looks much cheaper, almost like a TV movie. It feels like a low budget made for TV Blade movie, as opposed to a big action blockbuster released in theaters. But at 25%, yeah sure, why not? In comparison to the first 2, it's a giant step down, and on its own it's just not really that interesting of a comic book movie. Next is X-Men Dark Phoenix, with a 22%. I genuinely didn't know this movie is actually rated that low. Unlike other movies on this list, at least it seems to be half decently made. Like they had somewhat of a budget, I guess. Just thought the story and characters were pretty dumb. Honestly, I was never the biggest fan of X-Men movies anyway, but a 22% does seem shockingly low. I don't know, bump it up to like an even 30 or 40. Next is Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, with a beautiful 18%. Now a lot of what I said about the first Ghost Rider movie basically applies here. Nicolas Cage is easily the best part of this movie, and his wacky performance alone is what carries it. Although where it fails is that it's not as fun as the first Ghost Rider. It has moments where it is really batshit insane and kind of funny, but it never feels as enjoyable as the first movie. It also doesn't help that its visual effects and CGI looks dated even by 2012 standards. It's like it came out 5 years after the first Ghost Rider, but at times it looks worse. So even though 18% is pretty damn low, I'm not going to argue against it because this movie is pretty bad, but not quite as goofy and fun and so bad as good as its predecessor. Next up is Morbius, which I did a review on recently, and it's at a 17%. Yeah, it's definitely way too low, and I honestly feel like the hate for this movie is just really unnecessarily high, because even though it's a pretty bad movie, I don't think it's no worse than the other two Venom movies, which a lot of people seem to enjoy. I mean, it shares a lot of the same issues as those two Venom films, but I feel it has almost the same level of entertainment value. It's like, yeah, it's dumb at times, but honestly I was never really bored. And honestly, it's way better than any other movie on this list. It's just a mediocre or below average movie that people just really wanted to hate. I'm seeing videos of people saying this movie is a disaster, and I'm just like, yeah, sure, I guess. guess. If anything, it's painfully below average with some moments that are kind of fun. But yeah, I feel 17% is just much too low. Elektra with 11%. And finally, Fantastic Four 2015 with a 9%. Yeah, this movie sucks. Probably has like one of the worst third acts and final battles I've seen in a comic book movie in recent memory. But more importantly, it's just so goddamn boring. You have superpowered people who don't really use their powers that much. It kind of leaves you wanting so much more. Although 9% is very, very low, perhaps even way too low. But I don't care, fuck this movie.
Grab me if you want, nothing will unfuck the Thanksgiving turkey.
So yeah, most of these movies are pretty bad, but I find some of them entertaining in their own way, even if they aren't that well made of movies. Really, I only think Morbius and the 2004 Punisher movie are the only ones that are pretty decently made, and below average at worst. Yeah, but regardless, all these movies are pretty bad in their own way, with some being much more entertaining than others. So now let's take a look at the lowest rated MCU movies. And in the contenders, we got Eternals, Thor the Dark World, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Age of Ultron, Thor, Iron Man 3, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and Captain America the First Avenger. And after looking through all these, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like most of the MCU movies' ratings are inflated. It's like I said before, the MCU is filled with mostly passable movies that are usually just serviceable. So to see some of these actually in the 70s is pretty surprising. Like Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Thor 1, Iron Man 2. Personally, I would probably put them in like the 50 to 60% range. Because like I said, I feel like most of these are just pretty serviceable. And hell, for Thor the Dark World in particular, I'd actually knock that down even lower. The movie is just atrociously bland and boring. The only ones that I feel like are pretty fine where they are Eternals, Captain America, and Iron Man 3. Of course, that's ignoring the Mandarin twist. With the twist, you can probably drop it down lower. And the only one that I would actually rank higher is The Incredible Hulk, which is my favorite on-screen version of the Hulk. I really like that movie, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, realistically, a lot of these movies are just really inflated, but they are at least serviceable and watchable. But I don't think they ever get as bad as some of the lowest rated comic book movies of all time. They are fairly consistent in that regard.
That's two dudes banging each other. What do you get from that?
So yeah, that's what I think about the lowest rated Marvel movies and the lowest rated MCU movies. For the Marvel movies in general, they're all pretty bad, but some of them are actually very entertaining because of how bad and dumb they are, and there's really only a few of them I would actually rank higher. That I feel is kind of overhated. Although, like I said earlier, it has been a while since I actually watched some of these movies, and I'm going off of my memory alone. So odds are they probably are worse than I remember, or hell, some might be better than I remember. But then on the flip side for the MCU movies, I feel a lot of the movies' ratings are inflated and aren't nearly as good as you would think considering the scores. And hell, I actually forgot to mention these ones. Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp, all three easily have some very inflated scores. If anything, I think these ones are the most inflated. But anyway, that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it. And leave a comment, let me know, what do you think about the ratings that all these movies received? You think they're too high? Think they're too low? Leave a comment, let me know. Thanks for watching. This video was a waste of time, really.
No, mein Führer. I'm from Arizona.
I ain't exactly gay, but I ain't exactly not gay.